We're going to be turning this thing into one of the world's fastest Star Wars ride-on cars. Check this thing out. This build is also sponsored by Fast Kids Club. You can use our coupon code TEETERBUILT to save big. Make sure you check out their website. They have some awesome merchandise. So, are you ready to test this thing out?
Yeah.
So before we do anything, we just got our stickers on here. We're gonna get it. Gonna get a nice test run in it first. Just compare the speed before we modify this thing. It's gonna. We hope to make it super fast, right?
Yeah.
We have to get Trevor's at school right now, so we got Zoe out here testing it. But we're gonna have to put a wheelie bar on this thing. I think we're gonna go with a 4-motor setup. It's gonna be a rocket.
Yeah.
Zoe, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's see what it does on a drill battery. We were going to test it on 12 volt, but I knew that would be boring, and nobody wants to see that. So 20 volt. Zoe, you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. Oh, we might need a battery, right?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, we got a battery. Zoe says she's hopefully going super fast. Hop up real quick, honey. We'll pop this in under the seat. We'll have to cut that battery end off real quick. All right, so we got our wire ends on there, and just put your positive on this side of the battery. Maybe on this side, we'll just throw a little piece of tape around there. We call this the ghetto way. You can get these adapters if you don't know, right off of Amazon. You can get one for a DeWalt, Milwaukee, any kind of battery that you run, but we just usually do it this way. It's easier, cheaper. All right, Zoe, we're all about a budget build, right?
Yeah.
You want your Baby Shark helmet?
I don't need my goggles.
No goggles?
Yeah.
You ready to test it out?
Yeah.
All right. Here, let's lift up the back first to make sure it's working. Give it a little gas. Sounds slow. Let's see if there's like a high speed or something. I don't know. Is there a shifter on this? Oh, yeah, there is. Now test the gas. Whoa. All right.
Hooray!
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Driver 3, 2, 1, go. What do you think?
Good.
All right, we got the Star Wars car in on our little mini lift, and we're gonna get building. So first thing we always do, I would just start by removing everything from the car, electronics and all the wiring. So I'll take the seat out, we'll get rid of the battery that we were using, and I really just cut out all the wiring, and we just start over, because most of this wiring is 12 to 14 gauge, and when we're using the power and amp load that we are doing with this motor combination, and we're still not sure what voltage we're going to run on it, but we're probably going to build it for the modified class, so it will be a forged battery setup, but I'm sure Trevor's going to want to experiment some and use some of the LiPo batteries. So we are going to wire it with 10 gauge wire, just so if we do LiPo setup, it will be safe. So pretty much had to just take a couple screws out so you can get this little cover off here to be able to access to the wheels. Once that's off, and it looks like it's just a 13 millimeter nut on both sides of the axle, which is nice that the axle is already threaded for us. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take these nuts off and see where we're at there, see what the gearboxes are looking like. So we got the wheels off, took the nuts off. These are some really funky looking gearboxes. I've never seen this style before. So we're gonna kind of have to see what we can adapt to these wheel adapters, or possibly see what gearboxes we can fit in there, and then just adapt a different style wheel. The biggest thing would just be to see what we can fit in there. So I'm gonna try some Kid Tracks and then some 7R. We're just gonna unplug these old motors here because we're definitely not gonna be using these. Just gonna throw these all. Definitely definitely not going to be using these gearboxes either. We're just going to throw these in the junk pile. Rip all this wiring out. Switch it all over to the thicker 10 gauge. And these connectors are stiff. There we go. Also, if you guys are interested in building one of these lifts, they're super simple to build. We're actually going to post a new video that shows you guys how to build these things. But they're super simple. You get some metal at your local metal shop, hardware store, and just use a MIG welder with some little actuators and a controller, and you got yourself a mini lift. But now that we got the gearboxes out, I'm just gonna go ahead and just get all this wiring out. We're just gonna cut it all, and then like I said, we're gonna just leave the factory pedal in there because we just need it as an on-off switch. So we'll just run new wires to that off of the solenoid that we're using, because we're gonna be switching over to the TE solenoid and running a drill battery on here, and probably be able to run some lipos as well. After going through our bin of extra parts, I found something that I think is gonna work pretty good. So we have the Kid Trax gearbox. We have the factory wheel that came off of the Star Wars Radio Flyer car. And then we have this wheel adapter that's made by Lyle's 3D printing. It converts, it's originally made to go from a Kid Trax gearbox to like a Power Wheels style wheel, like a Lightning McQueen wheel or a Jeep. But what we're gonna do here, we're gonna take this adapter off. It's gonna actually look like this because we already took this adapter off. And then we're gonna trim down the side of this to be able to fit in here. And then this will be our new wheel adapter to be able to use the Kid Trax gearbox while utilizing the factory wheel so that everything still fits in here. So we have the Kid Trax gearbox. Let's put it in here, see what it looks like. Fits on the axle good. Now the only thing we are gonna have to do is, as you see, we're gonna have to trim out a bunch of this. Probably gonna trim out this whole area. My finger's blocking it. This whole area in here, so the gearbox can sit in another inch. Then we'll have room for the motors, because right now the issue is the way the gearbox is sitting, our wheel is gonna be sticking out. We still want the wheel to be able to sit up in the car like the factory look. We want it to really kind of look factory and look like a total sleeper, but also be able to go 20 miles an hour plus. Like, this thing's gonna be a rocket. So I have the gearbox on there. We're just gonna Sharpie roughly where we need to cut out. So pretty easy to do. We just have this little DeWalt multi-tool here. Pull our gearbox back out, and then we'll cut this out. I will throw the gearbox back in there and see how much more we have to cut out. Oh wow, that's like perfect. So now we can fit the whole gearbox in there and have plenty of room for our motors. Hopefully this piece doesn't interfere here, but I think we'll be all right. So you can get a closer look at what we cut out. So as you saw before, the gearbox would be sitting about here. We're just moving it in just to take up so we can accommodate for the wheel adapter and still be able to use the factory wheel. So we'll just go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Trim out that and we'll be rocking. So I got the other side trimmed out for the driver's side gearbox, so now we can fit both in there. The next thing is going to be trimming down our wheel adapter a little bit to fit into this wheel. We're just going to take our multi-tool again and just trim off like one here, one here, one here, and one here, so this can just sit down in there. And then we'll see what the wheel looks like on there. Alright, so we just cut off a couple of those corners. Now the wheel adapter fits down in this wheel perfectly. So essentially we have our stock wheel. And I mean, it's gonna fit up in there good. We'll be able to put our little side skirt back on and cover it up. But anyway, we just screwed them to the back, and since we are going to be running dual motors and most likely end up going to LiPo, we did put some of this glue on here. I'm going to smooth it out here in a sec. But this adhesive will just help, so hopefully these adapters never break loose on these wheels. But we'll just kind of smear this glue out. We just use some self-tappers to screw it in. To center them, you can use the axle, or I actually just used the drill bit to sit down in there so it's centered on the wheel. But yeah, I'm just gonna spread out that glue, let it dry, and then these wheels will be ready to go on. So before we dive right into our wiring, we're gonna assemble these motors into the gearboxes real quick. So again, guys, these are the Kid Trex gearboxes with a dual motor plate. I actually make these plates. You can shoot me an email at oxfordpowerwheelsracing@gmail.com. I believe they're like $56 shipped, or you can go right on the ML Toys website and get them on there as well. You put them right on the back of the box and drill out where the motor goes, and pretty simple. Good template for you, as well as these 7Rs. These are the 7R ones, and I have plates for these as well. But anyway, we're going to show you how we assemble these. So we have some of these Andy Redline 775 motors. We're going to be using 21 tooth pinions and assembling these. So we'll kind of just show you guys real quick how we do it. These motors we already notched them. So what I mean by that is, see that little flat spot there? They don't come with that on there. It's just, the shaft is smooth. So we always grind a little flat spot on there so that the pinion set screw doesn't walk itself loose, and then your pinion ends up flying off. But just make sure you grind it flat and even, because if it's not even as well, your pinion will fly off rapidly, like right away. You'll end up destroying some gears. And the biggest thing too, you got to get these as tight as you can without stripping them out. So the good thing is trying to find a good Allen key that can actually tighten these things down, because a lot of the times, like when we get these pinions, we get them right off of Amazon, so they're cheap Chinese stuff, which works, but the set screws are not very strong. They're pretty weak. I mean, they hold good, but as far as tightening, they want to strip out. And then they also give you like a super cheap Allen key. I usually go to the hardware store and get a stronger one. They make like some nice steel ones there for pretty cheap. But if you're just getting into power wheel racing now as well, like you want to get a ton of different pinions, because it's going to really be a bunch of trial and error for which wheel you're running, how much weight your child is. There's so many different factors to it. That's kind of why I don't really give out what gearing we use, because it's kind of different for everybody. But like I said, this setup, we are going to be running 21 tooth. That's a good starting point for a lot. 19 to 21 depending, or 18 to 21 depending on your tire size and the weight of the driver, and what kind of battery you're using as well. So you're also gonna have to get these different size screws here, which you can get them from the hardware store. I forget the actual thread pitch offhand, but I'll try to remember to put it down in the description so you guys can see. But again, as well, the ML Toys does have these on their website. You can use coupon code Oxford10 to save 10% off. And also, if you can see this sick shirt that I'm wearing, Eat Sleep Race, check out their website. It's eatsleeprace.com. You can use coupon code Teeterbuilt or Trevor's Fast Life, and it will save you 15% off your entire order. They have some of the best kids and adult racing merchandise. That's pretty much the only gear that we wear, but they have some awesome gear. Make sure you check them out. They're a big supporter of our Power Wheels group. So we're gonna go ahead and try and get these motors mounted in here. This is kind of the worst part. They're just very tedious setting the pitch and just getting the motors mounted in the exact spot where they need to be. It's not hard, it's just tedious. Gotta be patient. A lot of the times I end up pulling the motors out 3 or 4 times before it's actually right. So It's kind of a pain, but again, like I said, you just got to be patient. Good. You don't want it to be too tight or too loose. You want that gear to be able to slide in and off like super easy. All right, so let's get that second motor in there. All right, so we got that gear, or I would say we got the motors mounted in there. The pinion mesh is set. So this gearbox is ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and put this thing in the Star Wars car, and then we're gonna get our other case put together. I'm not gonna video that whole thing. I know you guys don't need to watch a whole nother one, but you saw how that goes. It's gonna be the same concept for the second gearbox. And then we'll walk you through the next steps from there. So we're going to dive into our wiring now. All these parts right here is what's needed to build a modified class car and what we're going to be using to finish up the wiring in this. As you see, we got the motors and the gearboxes assembled and in the car. They're just kind of sitting in there so that we can get our solenoid in the car and measure out how long our wiring needs to be. So we have our TE solenoid, which can be purchased through mltoys.com, or I also have these in stock myself. You can shoot me an email at oxfordpowerwheelsracing@gmail.com. I can send you those out, as well as all the gear plates and everything like that. So we're going to go ahead and set that in here. All right, so we have our wire. We just have some 10 gauge wire here. I need to grab our 10 gauge black wire for the ground here in a minute. We have just a 75 amp push-pull kill switch. This is going to be in line of the pedal. So this will actually kill the connection to the pedal if a pedal was to go bad for some reason. But like I said, when you're wiring these things correctly, it's just voltage going through the pedal and no amps. You typically will never get a bad pedal. What kills the pedal is when you're running all your power through the pedal with no solenoid, through the big side of the solenoid, and you're just pushing all these amps through a pedal that's only rated for about, I think it's like 25 amps. So, but yeah, we're gonna kind of walk you through how to set this thing up real quick. Another thing that I would highly recommend is a 100 amp or a 200 amp breaker. We just have a 200 amp one as shown here. So first thing I'm gonna do is start with wiring up the pedal. So you don't really need thick wire for this. Again, you can just use like 16 gauge wire. It's not seeing any amps, it's only seeing volts. So we're gonna have one power wire going from the small power wire coming off of the TE solenoid. This is gonna go here. We're gonna solder that on there, and then this is gonna run to one of the terminals on the back side of the pedal. Which we'll show you all that here in a moment. Let me get this wire ran through here. You can use butt connectors, but I would definitely prefer the solder, just so you know it's never going to come off. And then for the other side of it, I'll zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. And then from coming off of the other side of the pedal, so we're going to have this wire here going to one of the connectors on the back of the pedal. And then we're going to take another wire, as shown here, and we're going to run this off the back of the pedal. And then we're going to run that right to this push-pull kill switch. And then we're going to take another wire, run it from this side, and run this back to the circuit breaker so that it has power. All right, so we have our two wires ran through here that are going to be controlling our pedal. We put our push-pull kill switch right here, right by the steering wheel, so that our driver can hit it easily if they needed to. So that's what it's going to look like on the back of your pedal switch once you have your wires cut and crimped. So you're going to put one wire on the top pole of the pedal and then one wire on the bottom pole. You always leave this one open. So again, just so you guys aren't lost, this wire here from the pedal to the kill switch, this wire here is going to the kill switch as well, but it's going back to the power to the breaker. And then this wire here is going from the pedal to the little power wire on the TE solenoid. Pedal's all taken care of. Let me just go ahead and solder this wire here. And then we'll just put this wire. This is going to go to the other side of the breaker. We also got to run some screws in that breaker and solenoid to hold it down. Don't want that stuff moving around. I see a lot of people don't even fasten them down, but guys, you gotta put screws in those solenoids and the breakers so they're not flying around when they launch and that thing moves around and a wire touches or something. It could short out under the seat, catch on fire. You don't want anything like that to happen. So that's soldered up here. Get my screw gun. Just put a couple screws in these to hold this stuff down. Stuff's fastened down. This wire put under the breaker. And then we're gonna take this wire here. We're gonna run this wire from the breaker as well to the big pole on the on the solenoid. Gonna run that to the big pole on the solenoid. And this wire is actually 6 gauge. I do like using thicker wire for this part of it because this side is seeing amps. These little wires aren't seeing any amps. Then we're gonna take our power wire, which is gonna go to the battery. I drilled a little hole here already because we're just gonna kind of set the battery right up here and put it in like a little LiPo protecting case. But we're just gonna run this through here, put a copper end on it, and put it on this side. So we got a copper end here. Gonna go ahead and strip this thing back a little bit. Pull some of that wire back through. When you crimp them, I mean, I'd recommend putting heat shrink over it, but we just actually ran out of some heat shrink, so I'm just gonna use some electrical tape just to cover up the connection there. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on this side of the solenoid. I'm sorry, the breaker. Nut on, tighten it down. And then our ground wire is also gonna come out here, obviously, as well. But we'll just kind of cut this wire about here. And if we need to shorten it up some more, we can. So next is gonna be getting these are 200 amp little distribution blocks that we got off of Amazon. I'm gonna figure out where we mount these in here. But probably something like here. We're gonna have power coming off of here. The big side of the solenoid going over to the distribution block. And then this will be power from here going to our motors. And then again, our ground is just gonna be wired here. Ground is very simple. We're gonna have a ground wire coming out of here, straight from the battery to the terminal distribution block. And then this side will go the ground to each motor. And then this wire here off the solenoid is just gonna go to the ground on here as well. So now we have all of our power wires ran from the solenoid to the distribution block out to where our battery is going to be going. And then we have our ground wire ran from the solenoid to the distribution block. And then our other wire going from here out to where the battery is going to be going. We're going to be starting off with just a Milwaukee drill battery. So we call this like our little getaway. You can buy like the battery adapters off of Amazon or eBay, but you just slide that right in. And you just slide this right into the negative side on the battery, and there you go. We're gonna be switching this thing over to LiPo, so that's kind of why we didn't put the battery connector on there for now. So we're just gonna use that setup and start there and then switch over to the LiPo. So we're slimming down to almost being finished here, guys. We just gotta wire up our motors now. So we gotta make 4 power wires to go from here to each individual motor. and then 4 ground wires to go from here to each individual motor. So I'll start making up some ground wires. As for length, cutting them and crimping the ends on using the copper ends and 10 gauge wire. And I'll be back here shortly with the wires and show you guys what it looks like and install them on there. All right, well, I got all 8 of the wires made. So, and when we're making these wires, how I do it, you know, I'll just kind of match up the wire to the motor, cut it down, put your copper end on, and then we use these 10 gauge female ends for the motor connection, and then we usually will just add a little bit of solder so that these don't ever come off of the motors. But pretty self-explanatory here. I misplaced the nuts for this other side, so we're just gonna throw them under here for the meantime. Gonna kind of be a lot of wires in here, which I'm not a huge fan of the way this is, but probably change it up a little bit here just to clean it up some. Kind of solder these on there and kind of clean this up a little bit to get these out of the way, but at least you guys can understand that this is how it's set up. We're used to wiring these in Lightning McQueens and Corvettes with a lot more room. We're gonna make it work. Just gets a little tight. Next is just gonna be putting our grounds on. Well, we got this thing all wired up. Let's hook up that battery and test it out. Whew. That thing's gonna be a rocket. Just need the kids to get home from school so we can test this baby. So we're out here at the test spot. We got that pimp juice. So he's about to test out the soon-to-be world's fastest Star Wars, I don't know what we're gonna call this thing yet, but this thing was just like a Star Wars Land Cruiser. Big shout out to Fast Kids Club for sponsoring this build. But this thing is epic. Dual motors, as you guys see. Zoe's about to send it down the track for the first time. Just gotta put a little heat on that prep. We got just some duct tape on the tires for now before we put some rubber or foam on there. We were gonna do the foam, but we kind of wanted to just leave it so we can wrap the tape on and take it off so she could do a little drifting in it as well. So this is the pre-test before Trevor gets to test it. Zoe's gonna be trying it out on the Milwaukee Forge battery. You ready to send it, Zoe?
Yeah.
You gonna go super fast?
Yeah.
You gonna get a PB?
Yeah.
How fast do you think it's gonna go?
Really fast.
Really fast?
Yeah. That's the club.
Boom. All right, so let's do it, girl. All right, we got our battery hooked up. We got it prepped. Zoe, let's put a little heat on those tires. Go ahead, hit the gas. All right, you ready, girl?
Yeah.
Zoe's gonna make her first pass in the Star Wars rocket ship. Sponsored by Fast Kids Club. Don't forget to use coupon code Teeterbuilt to save 15% off your entire order. They have some of the best kids and adult racing merch. You can get it right on their website. Zoe, you ready, girl? All right. Driver ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. Woo! That was a little violent, huh? You want to try again? All right, let's line it back up. Ready, Mommy? 3, 2, 1, go! Woo! That steering's a little rowdy.
I'm going faster.
2, 1, go! Well, we finally got to test out the car. The steering's a little crazy, kind of like what I expected. The wheels are so close. We're gonna get it back in the garage and do a little something with the steering to stiffen it up a little bit, and then add the LiPo batteries. But stay tuned, because Trevor's gonna be testing this thing next, and we're gonna have a new video coming out very soon.